5-Year Mission the Podcast, Episode 52.
This episode of 5-Year Mission the Podcast is brought to you by Fansets, your home for all things pop culture pin related. Head over to fansets.com and see all that they have to offer. And also stay tuned at the end of the episode for a very special offer from us here at 5-Year Mission.
By now you figured out that this is the 5-Year Mission Podcast.
Welcome to 5-Year Mission, the podcast, the only podcast hosted by a band called 5-Year Mission. I am one of your many hosts, Andy Fark. Joining me tonight, I got three others. One of them is Chris Spurgeon.
That is I.
That is you.
This is I. Me. I am me. Me is I.
You.
Carry on.
My wayward son. Another square on my Zoom here. Mr. Haircut down there, Noah Butler.
Good evening.
I did notice that.
I just now noticed.
He's freshly shorn.
It has been cut since last we saw each other.
Yeah. And then lit very poorly. It real creepy. Down at my bottom right square. Jesus Christ. Mike Rittenhouse. God.
How y'all doing tonight? It's great to be back here again. I can't wait to get down and talk about this topic. I've been thinking about it all week.
No, you haven't.
Since about 5:30.
There you go. that makes more sense.
Hold on, I'm wikiing my topic now.
What? Just now?
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm joking.
Man, I would hope so. I mean, to be fair, I do have the IMDb of my subject on in the background right now, just so I can refer to it in case we need names of anything. But tonight we are going to be covering, because not only are we not just a Star Trek band, we're also fans of other TV shows, movies, franchises, things like along those lines. And we want to talk about a few of our other favorite sci-fi and fantasy shows out there right now. They may be old, they may be new, they may be running currently in their however many seasons they got going right now. But yeah, we wanted to, let people know what else they may be missing or what else they may be into, or maybe go, I agree with that. So,
and none of it's Star Wars. We all like Star Wars. Everyone likes Star Wars. We're not talking about Star Wars.
Yeah, that's exempt. I mean, Noah could really go off on some Star Wars, but we're not going to let him.
And this is my boss action figure. And this.
Why does he have an accent?
I don't know. Why not?
All of a sudden he's from like Bavaria or something.
You know what? They just come out of my face, and I just go with it.
This one, most people call him Hammerhead, but nobody else really knew his real name. Hey, Noah, what was Hammerhead's real name, by the way?
Momanedan.
You're just babbling.
He just knows.
He's making that up.
I'm not. You can look it up.
Well, since you're kind of a know-it-all here tonight, Noah, why don't you start us off with your pick?
All right. We're specifically here talking kind of about science fiction-y-esque shows, correct?
And we just brought up some foreign things too.
Which rules out Star Wars anyway.
That's true. Star Wars is full-on fantasy.
Is that right?
I mean, it's space fantasy, but it's fantasy.
Space
just because there's lasers doesn't mean it's
magic,
sci-fi.
Space Knights.
Space Knights.
Jesus.
All right, I am talking about a German science fiction television series called Dark. And it ran for 3 seasons, told a complete story. So if anyone wants to go check it out, they're not going to be left hanging with a great show that got canceled or anything. It was planned out as a 3-season arc. They completed their 3-season arc. They told the whole story, start to finish, satisfying ending. Great show. It is German. So I would recommend leaving the German audio and reading the subtitles. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but I would highly recommend that version of it if you are going to watch it.
I will say that the dubbed version is not bad though.
I've heard that. I've had more than one person after I screamed at them for doing the English audio. They said it's really not that bad. I think
at them.
Well, I'm being hyperbolic. Anyway, the show debuted in 2017 and finished up in 2020, and basically follows characters in a town called Winden in Germany, where they are trying to find out the truth of some missing kids that go missing. And it does involve, it's not too big of a spoiler because I think it's like the second episode you figure it out, maybe even the first, I don't remember. But it does have time travel in it. So you are seeing the same characters in multiple timelines. So not only do you have the German language to help confuse you, but you also have characters of different ages in different timelines to also confuse you. It is a show that you have to pay attention to. It is not a show to just put on in the background while you're doing dishes or something. It's like, it is one you have to commit to. You have to sit down and go, I am going to really focus and concentrate on this show and pay attention to it. So if that's not how you watch TV, I wouldn't recommend I wouldn't recommend this show to you. if you're not ready to commit.
Which unfortunately is how a lot of people watch TV nowadays.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it was just so cool. When I first started watching it, rarely do I get more than one episode or two episodes of a show done before I have to call it quit for the night, but this one, I think I was like onto the third episode, and it was getting close to bedtime. It was even getting kind of late for my bedtime.
Like at least
on a work.
It was like what, at least 8 o'clock?
It was getting close to 9 probably. No, it was like I was in like the third. I think it was in the third episode, and it was getting close to midnight. But by when that third episode ended, I would have never considered doing this, but like I was going to call in sick to work the next day so I could stay up all night and finish it. Like that's where I was with that. Like, I was a teacher, so like that's not an easy task. I didn't have sub plans ready to go. It would have been it wouldn't have been good. But like I was so close to just being like, nope, I'm staying up all night, or just going in and teaching on 1 hour of sleep, because I was really tempted to do that. But it's got a lot of things that I like that have kind of shown up in other previous shows that I like. It's got caves, it's got power plants, it's got missing children, it's got bunkers, it's got the multiple timelines going. It's got so much going on. It just super, super cool, and lots of twists, tons of twists and turns. And even like by the third season, it's just bonkers by the third season, with all the twists and turns and time travel and timelines and things that you're keeping track of.
Caves and power plants.
Caves and power plants. I know. I'm a big, that is for me. Like I'm a big cave person. Like I like to spelunk. I like to explore caves. I have unearthed 4 caves on my property and that had never been gone in by a human, and I was the first one to go into them. So like caves are really thrilling to me, and so this has a very cave thing, and
just more places to hide the bodies.
More places to hide the bodies. Tying it back to my Star Wars action figure collection. I thought when I died, I should just be like set up in like a lawn chair down at the bottom of a cave, like, with all my action figures behind me, and just like a shotgun on my lap. So just some future generation person who stumbles upon the cave and decides to go exploring will come upon my mummified body with the shotgun and my toy collection behind me.
Sounds like something you would stumble across in an Assassin's Creed game.
I'd like to point out that Noah managed to get his Star Wars figures in this conversation, regardless of what we're actually talking about.
With talking about Hammerhead and AKA Mona Barrett or whatever.
Well played, Butler.
Yeah, well done.
Well played.
I wanted to also add that if listeners out there, if you wind up watching this show and liking it, the creators of the show are making a new one. I think it's supposed to debut in 2023, I believe. But they are making a new show, which I'm really excited about a steamliner going from London to New York. And it's at 18, I think it's the title of the show. I think it's called 1899. So it's set in 1899, and they come across like another, like a ghost ship, like another ship adrift, and takes this dark and kind of horrifying nightmare turn. And they say, so it sounds really cool. And if it's coming from the creators of Dark, it's got to be awesome. It's got to be great. So I'm excited about that.
Dark is currently still streaming on Netflix, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's where it originated. I mean, that's where it it was made, I believe, for Netflix. And
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Netflix has done a few. They've gone out and grabbed some cool German foreign shows. There was another one. Babylon Berlin was a pretty cool show too. That they were.
I think it's pronounced Babylon 5.
That's a different one.
Avenue 5.
I'll give it to Netflix for grabbing some. Anybody ever watch like Run Lola Run?
Oh, yeah.
So like this is the same guy who made Babylon Berlin.
Oh,
it's a cool show set right before the Nazis kind of start the rise of the Nazis in Germany, and so it's interesting. It's a cool show too. Not science fiction though. Kind of a dark noir mystery is kind of what that is. But I know Chris, you and Mike both watched Dark, and you haven't seen it, right?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
So Chris and Mike, if you have anything to add to that, because I know you both watched it.
I did watch it, and I watched it on your recommendation, as I recall. And one thing I can say about this show, I agree with everything you said, by the way. Time travel is a really tricky subject, and it's really, really easy to make it incomprehensible or just a way where it's just riddled with holes. And I think this show does a really, really good job with time travel. I don't know that I know of any perfect instances of where there's time travel in a show or movie.
Back to the Future.
I would like to agree with you on that, but no. But I think they do a really good job with the time travel, and it's really just a compelling story. And there's a lot of moments where you're like, oh, what? Where just like, wow, I did not see that coming. So
and also
really cool.
Yeah, and the acting was really good too. I mean, they did a really good job of acting, and it's just got a very just kind of the tone and the visuals too are very atmospheric and cool as well.
Well, the other thing is that just the whole concept altogether was something I hadn't seen before, and it's probably a variation on something. I mean, everything is. Yeah. But I thought it was really unique. Just the whole idea behind it was really unique.
Yeah. I agree.
I started it on your recommendation. I did not finish it, but not because it wasn't good, because it was actually very good. I just got distracted and kind of never went back, kind of forgot about it. So I do need to finish it.
How far were you?
I think I got near the end of the first season.
Okay.
I don't think I finished the first season, but I definitely watched several episodes.
Well, at least now you don't have to wait for another season to come out because they all exist.
Yeah.
True.
I think when I had originally suggested to you, I think it may have only had 2 seasons. The third season, I don't think was out.
I remember I watched the third season when it came out. I'm pretty sure it was 2 seasons when you told me about it. I think you and I were watching at the same time when the third season came out.
We were, yeah. And I went back and rewatched the first 2 seasons before the third season came out, just because I wanted.
That's right, because I had
to get my head together.
Yeah, because I think I was watching it about the same time, the first 2 seasons, while you were rewatching.
Yeah. So that's Dark.
It's very
Check
cool.
it out, folks. If anything we've said sounds intriguing, but leave the German audio on, for the love of God.
Oh my God, you purist.
I agree. Reading is hard.
It can be
sometimes.
I guess it really depends on how much you want to pay attention. Like if you need to look away for some reason, probably go with the English audio. But if you want to read a novel with some German.
What's funny is that I cannot, like, my parents will have the subtitles on for regular any show.
Oh, I do too.
And it drives me nuts. Like, I will not watch a show where I understand the language and also see the words below. Like, to me, the words are so distracting from what's going on in the show.
It is very distracting.
Funny.
I agree. If the subtitles are on, the closed captions are on while I'm watching an English show, I cannot help but read the captions.
And it's not always exactly how they say it, and that drives me nuts.
Yeah, I'll notice that. But I like having them on just because I ruined my ears from years and years of being a dumbass and not wearing earplugs at shows.
Well, also there's
I just turn it up.
I thought it was just me. I have to turn it up too, because I read some article where it says no, it's not you. This is why you can't hear dialogue in TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And so there is an actual, like, I didn't read the article.
Well, and the music is always super loud. Like sometimes it's so loud you can't hear the dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some technical reason for it, which I'm sure we can all go look up. But it's just, I was too annoyed by it. I'm like, yes, you're right.
I think I read that same article that you're talking about.
So I understand why people would put on the subtitles, because it is so difficult sometimes to hear the dialogue, unless you have the remote ready to turn it up, turn it down, turn it up, turn it down. Something gets loud, something gets quiet.
I actually do that sometimes. Like when an action sequence starts, I will turn it down.
Oh yeah.
I just generally keep it up unless the kids are sleeping or something and I have to turn it down. Otherwise, I just don't care. I like it loud. I like that immersive feeling.
Speaking of Chris liking things, let's hear about what show Chris likes and wants to recommend to everybody.
Yeah, let's. So I am much more in the sci-fi space direction, much like Star Trek. And much like Star Trek, this show has a degree of realism to it. It's set in a time that is in our future, and the show that I'm speaking of is called The Expanse, and it was originally on Sci-Fi Network, and it got canceled after, I want to say, season 3, and then it got picked up by Amazon. And so you can watch it on Amazon.
It got picked up for 3 more seasons on Amazon too, right? It went up like season 6 or something. So
yeah. So there are actually 9 books that is the source material. And after I watched the show in its entirety, the 6 seasons, I went through and pretty much devoured these books in a couple months, and they're novel length, they're books, and there's actually a 10th book which is kind of supplemental stories that where they're mentioned within the main story, but they didn't really fit in the main story, so it's stories that are related to the main story, but it's such an engrossing story. Basically the story revolves around this future world where Earth is still Earth, but the technology is much greater than we have now, and space travel and extensive space travel is possible. Mars has been colonized. There's a lunar base, and there's also people that live out in the asteroid belt and in our solar system. And so there are these three factions. There's Earth, Mars, and the belt, and it's almost like a caste system. So, Earth is kind of the royals, I mean, this is where humanity originated. And then you have kind of the military faction on Mars, and you have the belters, or these, outworld, kind of, working class. They have to, scrabble for anything they have. They get water from like ice that's formed in space. So it's this really cool idea of how humanity spreads itself out, and how they've changed as they spread themselves out. And the first season and the first book as well is basically a murder mystery. Well, not really a murder mystery, but it's like a crime story. It's almost noir in that there's this police officer in the belt, and this girl goes missing, and she's the daughter of some, this rich family, and he's trying to look for her. And he kind of becomes obsessed, and throughout the story, different different stories with different groups kind of start developing. So people on Earth, and people on Mars, and people out on the belt. And it's just this really rich story. And at the core of this story is this alien substance, basically, that has been found, and it profoundly changes everything. And so the Mars and Earth and the Belters hate each other, and then there's this element that everybody wants because it could make them more powerful. And it's just so good. And it goes through, the books are, like I said, there's 9 books. The series goes 6 seasons, and they pretty much go along with the first 6 books. And then the 7th book, there's like a 20-year time jump. And so that's why they stopped it at season 6, because they didn't really know how to age these characters 20 years believably and finish out this story. So there's elements from the later books that kind of bleed into that last season. There's some characters that are left out, or kind of extra characters that are kind of combinations of other characters. It's just a really cool story. They don't have lasers, they have, the battleships have guns and like rail guns and bullets and things like that. And they have the other thing is really cool, much like Battlestar Galactica, from the early 2000s. The Expanse has some really cool like space physics, much better than BSG. But I think when Battlestar Galactica came out, just the way they filmed space travel was really unique and interesting. And in The Expanse, if they go really fast, they have to be shot up with this drug that basically keeps them alive, because the G's that they pull when they go so fast would kill them otherwise, or like they pass out. So it's having a stroke is common when you go too fast for too long.
Jesus.
I mean, I could just sit here and yammer about it forever, but it's just so good.
Am I incorrect in thinking that it's very, very accurate in depicting a lot of kind of space travel, future technology that seems very practical and plausible. Like I even felt like they had, I read somewhere or something that there was like, experts, NASA people who are, somebody who was very knowledgeable about space travel, as it is now, and what how it would change and adapt with technology, and that they were it was very accurate and very true.
I totally wouldn't be surprised. I don't know for sure, but
I feel like I read that somewhere, but that could be wrong.
Well, for example, when they travel to wherever, from one place to another in space. There's this special drive that they use that allows them to go cross large. It's not like warp, but it's fast. But when they, instead of just like, magically slowing down, they actually have to flip the ship around and burn the other way to slow the speed that they're going. And then that's how it's like this long, it's not like you can just stop in space, because there's no,
they got to pull a Rockford.
Yeah, basically. So it's just these little details. In one of the seasons, there's a ship that's kind of falling into this planet, and there's another ship that their drive has lost power. And so what they do is they basically hook up to this other ship and they fire the railgun, and the inertia from the railgun helps pull it up out of the atmosphere just enough so that it doesn't just drop onto the surface. Just like these little, these little touches that give it this sense of realism. And it's just a really cool show. I mean, obviously it's a show about space, and so not everything is 100% realistic, but I mean, it is science fiction. But it's just that you can really tell that they put a lot of effort into making things seem like this could happen someday.
Yeah.
In the starting from the first season, Thomas Jane is in it, and he's probably the biggest name that you would know. But also, and I'm going to mangle her name, Shore Agdashlu.
Sure.
She's got this great voice. You've definitely seen her before, but I mean, they're probably the two actors that you might actually know. But the other, like, a lot of the names in the show are ones you wouldn't recognize, but the acting's really solid. The one thing I will say, though, is that it takes a little bit of getting used to. The Belters have a way of speaking that is kind of mangled English, along with kind of their own language that they've created. And when I first heard it, I was like, what are they doing? It just took a little getting used to, but once you kind of get into it, it seems perfectly natural. Oh yeah, and David Strathairn is in it. I think he comes in like season 2 or 3, but he's another guy that he does the IU Health commercials, or used to.
What?
Yeah, he's the voice. You'd know him if he's one of those guys that you may not know who he is by his name, but you'd know him if you saw him.
Ugh.
Yeah, but it's such a great show, and I highly recommend the books too if you're into reading, because they take the whole mythology and just expand it, and they're just very engrossing. Like I said, I just thrashed through them in like a couple months.
You did.
I don't generally do that.
Yeah, I have watched all 6 seasons upon your recommendation, Chris, as well as others. I had heard other people talking about it. It was just one that I hadn't had anybody personally push, and then you started personally pushing it, and I was like, okay, and I watch it, and it is really good. And for like someone listening who's never heard of it or hasn't seen it, and hearing some of Chris's description, talking about an alien entity and having it be powerful and make people more powerful. You got to go into the show knowing it's a very show that's very grounded in like politics and relationships. It is not like, even the alien end of it is just sort of a side. I mean, it's part of the plot and it's integral to moving the plot forward, but it's the politics of all the different factions and all the relationships between the crew members that's like the heavy part of the show. And that's what makes it, that was what draws you in and gets you hooked is all the people and all the characters. It's just got some really great characters in it.
Yeah.
But it's very much a more serious sort of political space drama than it is a alien thriller, shoot 'em up kind of thing.
Well, and it also the lead actor Stephen Strait, he plays James Holden, and he's the captain of his ship, the Rocinante. And if you know anything about the name Rocinante, it was the name of Don Quixote's horse. And Holden is very much the hapless hero. He does things purely like he just leads with his heart and does things that end up creating massive change, but could be considered really stupid, like not well thought out. And so, he's the one who actually names the ship the Rocinante, which is kind of a kind of foreshadowing, I guess, for the way he is and what direction he and his crew are going to be going. So it's a really smart show. I mean, it's smartly written. I just can't say enough about it. It's just great.
Yeah, I really need to get into it. I've heard nothing but good things about it, but my sci-fi itself viewing is very limited for some reason, because it's not like a thing I use for like escapism.
Mm-hmm.
So I mainly go for like comedies and things like that when I'm like just have a moment to myself. But yeah, that's definitely one of the ones that I need to get into, considering all the seasons are available streaming. So I really got to get on it and watch it.
Yeah, I love sci-fi, and so pretty much anytime I see something new science fiction that's coming out, I at least want to try. I mean, I think I started watching The Expanse during its first season, and or it might have been because I don't think I had access to sci-fi at the time, so it might have been the second season. I had to wait till it was streaming. Yeah, I mean, right when I saw it, I'm like, I got to check this show out. I mean, and I'm so glad I did. I mean, it's a good enough show that once I finished it, I was like, I need to have more. I have to read the books to see what those are like and see what the rest of the story is like. So if that tells you anything, go watch it.
Mike, have you watched any of The Expanse?
Yeah, yes, I have. So I'll say this. I've started it 4 times.
Jesus.
Each time I get a little bit farther, but the farthest I've made it is like 8 or 9 episodes. And everyone talks about this show. I mean, people whose opinions I believe, they talk about how great it is. And for some reason, I don't know what it is. I get so bored with it. I don't like any of the characters. It's funny because everyone talks about it like the way you guys are talking about it, and you describe these characters or whatever, and like all I can think is like I feel the exact opposite of what you're saying. Like 8 episodes in, and I still can't tell these characters apart. They all seem the same to me, and I think part of the problem that I have with it is I mean, obviously it's my problem.
Clearly.
I'm just not that into the dystopian sci-fi. I like a little bit of it, but when it's just so gritty and dark and like that, like a lot of shows nowadays are like this, where they put all these characters together and none of them like each other, but they have to work together for whatever reason. And there's all this like backstabbing and whatever. And I don't know. I just get really, really bored of that. I like some positivity and some utopia in my sci-fi. I don't like for the whole thing to just be dark and depressing.
That's fair. And the first season, I'll give you, because the core group of the crew, Holden and Naomi and Amos and Alex, at the beginning of the show, they're working on an ice hauler basically, and they've been, I think, Amos and Naomi have known each other for a long time, and the other two, they don't really know each other, and so there's a lot of friction in the beginning because Amos kind of protects Naomi, and anytime there's disagreement with Jim, who's the captain, there's a lot of tension. And so as the show develops, these people become this unconventional family. And although some of them have family, James Holden actually has like 4 dads and 5 moms or something. I mean, he comes from this family on Earth it's like, they have multiple spouses. And so he has this huge family. And conversely, Amos is this guy who basically grew up in this system that as a child he was a prostitute basically, and drugs and criminality. And so he comes from this completely different world. And so these two people are trying to live together and understand each other. And it takes a long time for that relationship to develop, where Amos looks at Jim as not only a friend, but someone who he would die for, So it and Mike, I know we give you this all the time. Oh, just, keep going. The next season gets better. It's not that for me, it's not that it necessarily gets better. It's just different. It evolves. And I think that's one thing about the show that I really love, is that each season it's not the same thing season over season. The first season is almost like a mystery, trying to find this missing girl. And then the next season is about this, they've discovered this substance that can endanger the universe or empower, empower whoever has it. And it becomes more about stopping and destroying so it's a very it has a very natural evolution. I mean, by the time you get to seasons 5 and 6, it's like war, between this splinter faction from the belts and Mars and Earth. And it's just, the characters are never, they don't just stay the same character. They evolve. Even James Holden, who is like the golden boy at the beginning, he hardens, and he has to kind of, he makes some really bad choices and some really dark choices. And then the way they kind of do that for him, he just kind of turns on a dime. He's like, wait, I'm doing these horrible things. I don't want to do that anymore. So it's a little bit convenient, but still the point is there is evolution. It does change. So if you are a little bored with the first season, you might like the next season. If you don't,
how lost would I be if I skipped ahead to the second season?
You at least want to watch the final episode of the first season, because there, that kind of, I mean, you already kind of know what's going on. I think that you just be missing a couple episodes, and at least then kind of what happened. The proto-molecule is this thing that's in this alien substance, and you'll know what happens with that. You'll know what happens with Julie Mao, the girl who was missing. You know what happens with Detective Miller, who is Thomas Jane, and you kind of have something to go on as you get into the second season, because what happens at the end of the first season really plays into the rest of the next season.
You sound like Noah. Mike and I trying to convince Noah to watch to just keep watching Deep Space Nine.
Keep going.
Well, see, Mike knows that I tried to get him to watch Teen Wolf, and he just kept trying, and he just kept
watched
it
over a season.
And but
then again, this is also like Mike, and now my girlfriend Trey tried to tell me that I need to watch Buffy, and I was like, I watched 3.5 seasons.
It's it's not for everybody, I'm sure, but Teen Wolf is quite good.
Well, since Mike has some opinions, let's hear what Mike's choice is that we're going to disagree with.
I'm sure you will. Unlike Noah's 3 seasons that consist of 30 episodes, the show or the franchise that I'm going to recommend is 350 episodes and 3 movies.
Overachiever.
I'm talking about Stargate.
Is this Stargate Sg1?
It's the whole franchise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All the iterations.
So yeah, it starts with a movie. Movie came out in 1994. It's just called Stargate.
Classic.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Very, very good sci-fi. And then, that was it. And a couple of years went by. And the movie starred Kurt Russell. And
classic. Love Kurt Russell.
And
seriously, Kurt Russell is easily one of my favorite actors. I love that guy. Love that guy.
So Kurt Russell and James Spader, they played the two main characters, and their performances were fantastic. So a couple years go by, like 2 or 3 years, and then Showtime starts a TV show based on Stargate called Stargate Sg1. And they have the same characters in it. So they have the main character, which was Kurt Russell's character, Jack O'Neill. He's in the show, but now they replaced him with Richard Dean Anderson, who everybody knows as MacGyver.
Mm-hmm.
And another actor, Michael Shanks, who plays Dr. Daniel Jackson, which was James Spader's character. And the crazy thing is Michael Shanks looks and sounds just like James Spader. So
it's uncanny.
It's a really good transition. So SG1 ran for 10 seasons. After I think it's season 4, they switched from Showtime to Sci-Fi. But watching the show, it's not like you can tell that it's different, it's seamless. The quality and everything stays the same. Actually, with that show, the first season's a little rough. I mean, it's the first season, and some of the effects are really cheap and cheesy, and some of the acting and directing's a little clunky, but it's still pretty good. But as the show progresses over the 10 seasons, it just gets better and better and better. And I'm ashamed to say that when it came out in the 90s, I watched maybe 5 or 10 episodes, and I was like, this is boring, this sucks, it's not for me. And I never watched it ever again the entire time it was on. And then they had a spinoff after season 7 of SG1. They spun it off into another show, which was Stargate Atlantis. And that show ran for 5 seasons. And so there's so much to discuss about Stargate SG1. Have any of you watched it? Any of the Stargates?
I watched a few seasons of it here and there, but I for some reason I must have thought it was more like a thing that just ran on Saturday afternoons or something, because that's when I seem to remember always seeming to catch it.
I caught maybe one episode, a couple episodes, but maybe I didn't. It felt like at that time there was just a lot of weird, seemingly low budget sci-fi that was just on TV. And so it wasn't there a Babylon show, Babylon 5, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
That that show was on at the same time, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of shows from the mid 90s that fall into that category with the cheap low budget effects and everything. And the first 1 or 2 seasons of SG1 definitely crosses the Venn diagram with those.
Even though it was on Showtime, I figured on Showtime it would have had some.
It had some pretty good effects at times, but other times it was pretty cheap. You could tell they were putting the money towards certain scenes and effects and not others.
I started watching the first season because Mike, you've talked about it, and I thought, you know what, I need to watch this. I think I've watched 6 or 7 episodes, and like Noah said, it very much feels like that mid 90s, cookie cutter kind of sci-fi, which it's not that I don't like it. It wasn't compelling enough that I was like, I gotta watch this. And there's other things I was watching, so I just have never gone back to it.
Well, not to sound like a broken record, but it gets better in the next season, and then in the next, they really hit their stride in, I think, the third season. Now the first two seasons have pretty good episodes, but some duds. But I think around the third season they kind of figure it out, and from that point on, like every episode is solid. Like there are very few duds for the rest of the whole franchise. So anyways, Atlantis ran for 5 seasons, and it was during the 5th season, which ended up being the last one, that I kept seeing commercials for it on Sci-Fi. And like there are a lot of Star Trek actors on Stargate over the years, and a lot of them have recurring roles, and they like Connor Trinneer has a pretty big role recurring in Atlantis. Robert Picardo is in both shows. He's in like a total of like 30 or 40 episodes over the whole thing. So
is he like the Jeff Combs of Stargate?
No, but there are a couple of guys that if you watch it enough times, you start to recognize them in multiple roles, and you're like, I know that guy. He was in that other episode. It definitely suffers from that, where you see the reuse of characters, or not characters, but actors. So then Atlantis ended after season 5, and then they had another show. It was Stargate Universe, and that ran for 2 seasons. And Universe is actually a lot closer to the kind of stuff you guys are talking about. Like it's definitely like a Battlestar Galactica feel. It's based on a ship in space, and they're like cut off from Earth altogether. So it's and everybody hates each other and they don't get along. So you love it. But yeah, it's hard to sell people on it, because the first season is like straight out of the movie, and all it is like, they've got this Stargate that they go through and visit other planets, and it's very cookie cutter for a lot of the first and second season. But then they start to
Mike, the first season, if I'm remembering correctly, it's very episodic, right? It's like each episode can be taken, and just like a lot of a lot of Star Trek, you can just watch any given episode and just have a story, like their encapsulated story. It
is very episodic, and actually both SG1 and Atlantis are mostly episodic for their entire run, but the further you get in, the bigger the arcs, and the more each episode relates to it. But definitely the first 1 or 2 seasons of SG1 is very episodic. But the weird thing is like when you go back and watch it, like every episode has relevance for the rest of the series. Like there's little things that happen. Like there's probably only like maybe 5 or 10 episodes in the first 2 seasons that you could just completely not ever watch, and they don't matter. Most of them have like recurring, like ongoing effects to the story.
Are the seasons like 90s network length, or are they like pay TV length, like 10 episodes or whatever?
They're like 20 episodes a season.
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
wow.
So your standard TV show length of the day.
Yeah. So there's 17 seasons altogether between the 3 shows, and 352 episodes, I think.
Good Lord.
And there's also 2 more movies that they made. So the first movie, it's the only one that has the, Kurt Russell and James Spader, but they made the 2 other movies with the cast and TV show, which were made for TV movies. I mean, they were totally like continuations of the show. But they're really good too. And actually both of them kind of, you watch them after the series is over, and they kind of wrap up all of the main storylines. So it's kind of nice. Like nothing is really left undone by the end of it, between SG1 and Atlantis. It's not like, it's not like they got canceled and you just never found out what happened.
True. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the nice thing about having like multiple iterations of basically the same show. I mean, like along the lines of Star Trek. I mean, you're going to get callbacks to like previous seasons, previous series, things like that. And so it just kind of helps with like a continuing storyline and building that whole like in-universe kind of mythos.
And speaking of Star Trek, not only are there a lot of Star Trek actors that appear in it, but there are a lot of Star Trek jokes.
Really?
Yeah, like not in every episode, but they make references to Star Trek all the time on Stargate.
Is it kind of deferential, or are they making fun of it?
Oh no, it's definitely a love of Star Trek and sci-fi. The further you get into it, the more it's less about the actual Stargate itself and more about the whole universe within the franchise. And there's like alien races and there are spaceships and everything. Like it's way more sci-fi. There's one point where they discover a new ship they like claim a ship that they found in space, and one guy's like, this is on Atlantis, and actually my favorite character on Atlantis is Dr. McKay. He's pretty awesome, and he's like, or they're like, what are we going to name it? And he's about to say something, and then the other guy's like, we're not going to name it the Enterprise. It's pretty funny. There's like little references like that all the time, and they like refer to some guys as red shirts and stuff like that. Like it's a lot of fun.
That's cool. That's nice that they pay tribute to a show that they probably wouldn't exist if.
Right.
Exactly.
They're very self-aware, and actually by the end, like when you get close to the end of the series, they kind of there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek jokes about themselves, because they realize how long they've been on the air, and they like make jokes about like a lot of inside jokes that you can watch it and not even realize that they're doing it, but if you know about like all of the behind the scenes stuff, like there's the 200th episode of SG1 is called 200, like that's the title of the episode. And the whole premise of that episode is that they're making a movie. Like Hollywood is making a movie about. Okay, so I have to go back a little bit. Earlier in the series, there was an episode where this guy is making a TV show that's based on Stargate, and it's this really funny, great episode. And they have all these actors that are playing like the same characters, characters that are based on those characters. It's all meta. So then on the 200th episode, they're turning that show into a movie. And so they just have the whole show is just them talking about all of this stuff from the series, and there are all these great inside jokes. And like there's nothing happens in that episode. It's just them making fun of themselves, and it's awesome.
I like it.
I could go on about Stargate like for hours and hours, especially with people who have seen it. So you guys should watch it so that we can talk about it.
I'll watch more of it.
I'll watch all 350 some odd episodes, Mike. Don't worry.
I promise you. I promise you that it gets good and you will get into it, especially you, Chris. I think you will really like it, Chris.
Okay. I just gotta commit.
Yeah.
Commit to it.
It picks up pretty fast once you get in like the second and third season.
If I can commit to Stargate, you can commit to the Expanse. It's fair.
That's an even trade.
Yeah, I'm going to. I keep going back to it and trying to get farther because everyone keeps talking about how much they love it. Like I said, all these people that I trust their opinion. So, I've got to be like, and shows that I love that I know the first season is hard to get through, like Buffy. And it's like it's hard to sell somebody on it because that it gets so good later, but they have to push through and get to it. So I will push through.
Mike, and I do agree with you. I remember when I first started watching it, that it was hard. Like, I don't remember for how long, whether it was the whole first season or just part of the first season. It was hard to, like, I don't want to say like the characters, but there were just they had their different individual personalities, but you just did, as a viewer, you didn't feel bonded to them quite,
Yeah.
but you do eventually, like, and I don't know at what point it made that turn. I don't know if that's the second, because it's been too long now since I last watched it, but like, I don't know if that turn is in the second season or if it was somewhere in the first, but like, I know what you were feeling, because it just, it was hard to sort of just kind of feel a bond to the characters, and then all of a sudden it was there, but I don't remember when that happened. And I'm not one to keep pushing through to make that happen.
Yeah.
So it had to have happened sooner than later.
I think it has a quality that, for me, I liked it from the beginning, but I didn't care about it right away. You know what I mean? I enjoyed watching it, and I kept watching it, but I wasn't excited about it. You know what I mean? Like, you get excited and you like, just, you're watching, and like Dark, you're watching and you're like, oh man, it's 1:00. Should I keep going? It wasn't like that. But as the show kept, as it progressed, it became more and more like, oh man, I got time for one more episode.
I hate to say that's how I felt about the first season of Discovery, because it definitely had that same feel where people they didn't like each other. Like, there was a lot of turmoil, and it wasn't utopian enough for me, especially for Star Trek. I will say that they got away from that mostly, and I love Discovery now. And I've gone back and watched the first season, and I like it better now than I did the first time through. But I definitely felt that way about it as well. So I'll definitely push through on the Expanse. I'm sure that it gets more like something I would enjoy.
Something I forgot to mention before is, and I think Noah said about Dark, that it ends and it's a satisfying ending, despite the fact that they end the show after 6 seasons and there's still 3 more books for the story. They do tie everything up, so it's not like you're just left, because they had planned on ending it there, even though they had a little hiccup when they had to shift networks. But they did make a plan to end there, so it's not like it doesn't feel unfinished. So that's good.
So one last thing I wanted to say about Stargate is that I love SG1. It's a great show and everything, but Atlantis is definitely my favorite of all of the different Stargate shows. It just has like a perfect mix of everything that I want in science fiction. Like the science fiction, the action, the comedy, adventure, the really cool characters. Actually, Jason Momoa is on the show for the
really
first, season 2 through 5. He's on. He's in all of those seasons. So
I forgot about that.
Maybe I can get Jennifer to watch it. Jennifer would definitely watch it if Jason Momoa was on it.
His character's pretty awesome.
Cool.
So Andy, what do you got for us?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not super duper into sci-fi outside of Star Trek, really. I mean, of course, there's Firefly and there's Star Wars and things like that, but I didn't want to go and cover something that a million other people have already covered. So I went more the fantasy comedy route, and some vampires, some comedy, some blood. So I'm going with what we do in the shadows, the movie and the TV show.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure is a show that all of us have probably watched and can also agree that it is awesome.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I still to this day have not watched the movie.
Oh man.
You have to watch the movie.
I know.
Get out of here.
I plan to. I just haven't.
Because the best scene in the whole movie has Murray in it. Murray from
Flight of the Conchords.
Flight of the Conchords, yeah.
Rhys Davies, right?
No, Rhys.
Rhys Darby.
Rhys Darby.
Darby, yeah.
Yeah.
He just steals the scene, it's like the best moment.
Yeah, I mean that has Taika is in that, and Jermaine Clement is in that.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's funny.
Yeah, well, it's nice too because Taika and Jermaine both appear in an episode of the TV show too, when the main characters are brought before the Vampiric Council.
The TV's got a lot of nice surprise guests and recurring characters.
Which there are some Trek ties in this that I'm going to get to.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah, there's like at least 3. I'm sure there's probably there's definitely more, probably with voiceover things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But been going since I thought it started way earlier, but for some reason it's only been on since 2019. And I have looked forward to it every single season, every single week when new episodes would drop. Between Nadia, Laszlo, Nandor, Guillermo, and of course the only one with 2 names, Colin Robinson. Which is so good in and of itself. Just the thought of basically monsters located on Staten Island because they don't want to go out. They're just basically too lazy to go out and conquer the rest of the world is just so hilarious to me. And that I love that they shoot the show mainly at what they actually call vampire hours. They shoot the show at night. So none of the actors have a regular schedule anymore. And neither does the crew. And it's one of the funniest possible shows on television right now. And it cannot be beat, honestly, right now, comedy wise.
So let me ask you this, because I don't remember, for some reason when the last season ended, I got the impression that was it, like that was the end of the show.
Oh, no.
That's not correct.
Spoilers for something that just came out like a month ago, by the way.
Yeah. I'm just a few episodes away from finishing out the latest season.
Yeah, from what you described, you're almost there, but you still got it like 2 or 3 episodes until the season finale of this most recent season.
Yeah, and I think what makes this show work the best is the clashing personalities.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, so maybe just between like Nandor and Laszlo, like they're very opposite. Like Nandor is very like almost, even though he's so old and has been around forever, he's still very naive about the world.
Yeah.
And I do not get that whatsoever, but I love how he plays it.
Well, he always, it feels like he just got off the boat.
Yes.
I mean, it's like he came from this old world country from like, the 1900s. I mean, early 1900s, I guess, 1800s. Let's just do that. And he just is stuck in this time period. He wears these long flowing robes and jewelry, and it's just so he's just so out of touch. And then Laszlo is like the polar opposite. He thinks he's very up with the times. Yeah. But their 2 personalities, the way they rub up against each other is, and Laszlo is played by Matt Berry. And man, he is so funny. He's hilarious.
He is. Yeah, he is. It's hard. I was trying to think of like who would be my favorite or the funniest character, but I can't pick. Like there's like one moment it is Laszlo, and then another episode it's Nandor, and another episode it's Guillermo, and like it's just a testament to how great all of the characters are and how well they play with each other. And the talking about some of the conflict between them, which is so funny, is like I love Nadja's just like angry dismissiveness of Colin Robinson, like just how he just pisses her off all the time, every time, but she just like has a special like virile anger,
pure anger. Yeah.
Awesome.
But so speaking of Matt Berry and his past projects, this is where I told you there were Trek tie-ins with this. Matt Berry was on a show that I loved called Toast of London, where he plays like a washed up actor. And in that show, there was a character named Clem Fandango, who was played by Shazad Latif, who played Ash Tyler and Vogue on Star Trek Discovery.
Good grief.
Yeah. So there's your
degrees of
first
separation.
Trek tie-in.
Well, and Matt Berry is also a Star Wars tie-in because he was on Boba Fett, wasn't he? Because when they were having that big battle and the Rancor comes out and they're trapped behind that wall, he's like a bartender or something, isn't he?
Okay.
Alien.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in these Star Wars shows that I don't even realize that they're in it because of the makeup.
Yeah, he's fully made up.
Yeah, so I don't like. I find out later. I'm like, really?
Oh, okay. Matt Berry was the voice of 8D8 in the book of Boba Fett.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, in like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 episodes.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so he was in it. He just looked a lot like a robot in it.
Right, exactly.
They're called droids, Noah.
Yeah, Noah.
Yeah.
Get your Star Trek right.
You just exposed me that I actually don't know anything about Star Wars.
You just like playing with toys. That's all it is. And then, of course, the other big Star Trek tie-in in 7 episodes thus far is Doug Jones plays Baron Alphanas, like from the pilot, and then he just keeps showing up.
Yeah.
He's, what do they call him? Like the
Baron.
No, but he's like the ancient one or something. He's like super, super old.
Very old. Well,
and he's like all desiccated. And he looks like a bat.
At least he was very old and wrinkly and haggard and almost made of stone up until Nandor's wedding, and then he comes out just as basically Doug Jones in a long blonde wig.
What they did to him in what was it, the first episode, was so funny.
I know.
Was that when they took him they took him out on the town?
Yeah, but like what?
Guillermo accidentally messes up.
Yeah, like he gets burned or whatever, right?
Well, which is hilarious because what we wind up finding out about Guillermo with the whole vampire hunting thing, and I think that was season 3, is that his last name De La Cruz actually translates to of the cross, and that's a nice little tie-in to his little Van Helsing tendencies.
I want to mention I can't remember if it's a 1 episode arc or if it's a 2 episode arc. I think it's just 1. My absolute favorite episodes, because I can't remember, of the whole series so far, is when Laszlo goes and like tends bar and coaches like girls
in Pennsylvania.
Like in Pennsylvania, like he just goes and lives a whole nother life for a while.
Yeah.
Like that's just absolutely
as a bartender and a volleyball coach.
I absolutely. Was that just 1 episode?
It was over like 2 or 3 episodes.
The course of a couple. Yeah. That whole arc, that whole stretch, just that was brilliant.
What I think is great is that on YouTube now there is like a super cut of Laszlo like over pronouncing things. And it is the greatest thing because like the way he says Arizona is Arizona. And then the last one that Chris, the last episode you said you watched with the home renovation episode, with just the way he says New York City is just pure gold. New York City.
Well, they always emphasize the wrong. So Jennifer and I were talking about this today. Like I said, I can't remember but basically, if you like New York, he's like New York. The emphasis is different than it would typically be all the time.
Well, he
we just had some spaghetti.
Yeah, well, he did the same thing when he played the boss on the IT Crowd, and then also in the show that I already mentioned, the Toast of London, And it's just there are more supercuts on YouTube of him just overpronouncing things like across his career. And it's the most wonderful thing. And most recently, my oldest child freaked out because there's a song by Gorillaz, which is like their favorite band in the world right now, where
I saw this.
Yeah. Who was it that originally did the voiceover? It was an actor.
Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper. Yeah, Dennis Hopper originally did it on the original recording. I think it's like called like Monkeys on Fire or something along those lines.
Something like that, yeah.
But they just did a show in New York, and instead of Dennis Hopper coming out there, because he did, Matt Berry came out on stage and did it instead. And I was like, oh, that is a wonderful crossover.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my pick. It's one of the greatest shows on television right now, and probably will continue to be, hopefully at least for another 3 seasons or so, or until they decide it starts getting stale.
One of the best parts about the show is the opening credits, the song.
Yeah, I was
so
just
good.
Actually reading.
It's a great song.
I don't know, it's great.
It's from the 60s. It's like a 1960s song.
I can hear it in my head.
In one of my like garage 60s garage rock rabbit hole downloading things that I used to do to find music from the 60s, I had found that song along, and it's when I'm doing that, I'm searching through all this music that all sounds exactly the same, and I'm looking for something that just sort of jumps out as being kind of cool and kind of different. And I remember that song jumped out, and I had it, in this compilation that I had. And so it was quite a treat to hear it again and be like, oh, they found this.
Yeah.
I assumed it was a very obscure thing, but I don't know how obscure it is.
The original was released in 1966 by an artist named Norman Tanega. No, I'm sorry, not Norman, Norma Tanega. And it was on an album called Walking My Cat Named Dog. And apparently the title track of the album hit number 22 on the charts back in 66.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
And for anybody who might watch What We Do in the Shadows and have never seen Flight of the Conchords, and because I keep meeting a lot of other people who have never heard of Flight of the Conchords or never seen it, like it's got a lot of it's a lot of connected people between the two shows as far as actors and creators and writers and things like that.
Like Dave showing up as the leader of the werewolves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and Kristen Shaw is in it. She's also a vampire and is hilarious as usual.
Yeah. But check out Flight of the Conchords too if you have never watched that, because we as musicians, because
that's crazy. If you haven't watched Flight of the Conchords, that's crazy.
We appreciate that show because of it's about a gimmicky band trying to make it.
Yeah, right. And it's hilarious.
It's hilarious. Yeah.
New Zealand's #1 folk comedy duo.
Comedy duo.
But I would be remiss if we didn't move on here without mentioning the third Star Trek tie-in, which was when Nadia and Nandor take over the Vampiric Council, and they're trying to recruit new vampires. And Nadia, for some reason, thinks that the actor Scott Bakula is a vampire just because he hasn't aged. And so they get on a Skype meeting with him. And he's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Never mind, we never spoke to you."
Oh yeah, Nadia is always, she uses her mental powers and like erases people's memories all the time,
which is really funny in that last episode you watched.
Oh
Chris.
my god, yeah.
And the production crew, is there anybody else there? So sometimes the audio mixer's girlfriend has an opinion on something. Anybody else who works on this show?
Well, I think the best one was the episode before that where they were trying to get Colin Robinson into
private school.
The headmaster.
They just kept trying all the different pairings and certain areas.
Yeah, that was funny.
And by the end, they just had no clue who they were.
It was good stuff.
I got such a headache.
We got to move on before we spoil everything.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's gonna wrap it up if we move on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
Do you like 5-Year Mission? And do you like getting exclusive content? You should head over to Patreon right now and visit 5-Year Mission, because we've got all the exclusive content you're not getting on any other social media. There's videos, pictures, sometimes we post news there before we post it anywhere else, behind the scenes of us working on albums and podcasts, and sometimes just pictures of us goofing off that we don't put anywhere else, only on Patreon. And there are many options to choose from. You can be a lieutenant commander, you can be a captain, you can even be an admiral. Each of those comes with their own special perks. One of the perks of being an admiral is that you get to be a producer on this podcast. Currently, our producers are Carol Jones, Jen Tift, Helen Lake, Steve and Frankie Palopoli, Roxy and Becky, Debbie Rinke, Madison Rachel Jones, and Jim Morehouse. So what are you waiting for? Go to Patreon/5-Year Mission right now. That's the number 5-Year Mission. And sign up. It's that easy.
Blah, 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 blah.
You know the name, you know the product, you know what I'm going to talk about. It's fan sets, of course. You know what? They got all kinds of cool stuff, from Star Trek to DC Comics to Ultraman to Irwin Allen. You know, they got that Tom Paris plate pin, you know, Tom Paris from Voy, from his appearance on Star Trek Lower Decks. You know, that's pretty awesome, which I still need to personally order. You can also get the Strange New Worlds ship memorial set. Ooh, go on over and get that. Put it in your cart. Add some fan danglers to it. Add some display sets. Head on over there. Fill up your cart. Add in the word Trek Geeks upon checkout. All caps, no spaces. Trek Geeks get 10% off of your entire order. And remember, if you spend $30 or more, you get free shipping. Fan sets. Our PinSap character, and we thank Fansets for sponsoring each and every episode of 5-Year Mission, the podcast.
We've reached the end of yet another episode.
That's right.
Number 52, I think this was.
Something or other.
So that's going to do it. Go out there and watch these shows. They are currently all available streaming on various platforms at the moment. Dark, all the Stargates, the Expanse. I believe all seasons are currently available on Amazon right now. Yep. What We Do in the Shadows is streaming on Hulu. Yeah, I think that covers it.
Sg1 is on Netflix and Atlantis is on Hulu. Why they're not on the same one, I don't know.
Why they got to split them up like that?
I don't know.
I need a one-stop shop for all my Stargate needs.
Well, you know, you got 10 seasons of SG1, so
yeah,
it's not like you're going to be jumping around.
Well, there is crossover. There's a lot of crossover between the shows, so I highly recommend that you watch them in broadcast order. Now, it's not necessary. I mean, you can watch SG1 and not watch Atlantis, but there's enough crossover that it pays off.
Okay.
And of course, like a little sci-fi recommendation show, I would be remiss to not mention that one of my favorite shows that has been lacking between seasons, because they're only about to release season 2 here in a couple of weeks. So glad to see that Avenue 5 is coming back. Have you guys watched that?
No idea what that is.
I have not watched it yet.
Oh my God. It's basically just like a cruise ship in space.
Oh, I saw like the first episode of that. I think. Yeah,
it's with Hugh Laurie, TV's Dr. House.
Oh, I saw preview. I saw previews for that. Yeah.
It's a wonderful cast, and I think Josh Gad's in it too. But yeah, the entire cast is phenomenal in it. Season 2, I think, premieres in like like towards the end of October, I believe. So yeah.
You know, speaking of Josh Gad, if you haven't seen Central Park on Apple TV, oh my God, please watch it. It's so funny. It's great. You like Bob's Burgers?
Sure do.
Go watch Central Park. It's awesome. It has, oh man, what is his name? Oh, Stanley Tucci is the voice of this old lady named Bitsy. It is hilarious. And she's like mean. It's so funny. It is so funny. You got to see it.
I'll take that recommendation. Okay. I'll find it.
Yeah, do it.
Somewhere. But yeah, that wraps it up. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to 5-Year Mission, the podcast. If anyone is interested in listening to more of our music, check us out on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or anywhere that you can listen to music. Just search for 5-Year Mission and we will be the first thing that pops up. If you would like to contact us, you can email us at 5yearmissionband@gmail.com. You can also find us at 5yearmission.net and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
5-Year Mission, the podcast, is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
This has been a Classic Rittenhouse production.
See you guys.
And scene. Bye.
Wait, we only kept you 9 minutes over, Noah.
Yeah, I did. 9 minutes I'll never get back.
That's 9 minutes taking away from his action figure time.
Yeah.
That's right. He's got to build that thing in his cave. One of his caves. Oh, I'm Noah. I have multiple caves on my property.
And I'm gonna be buried in one of them with my action figures and a shotgun.
The other one's just a sex cave. If this cave's a rockin', there's something wrong with this cave.
That's right. Call the cops or the rescue team. Let's just stop.